Hello, Tashidele. My name is Doji Damdu. On this special programs, I have invited a former Tiananmen Square activist, Rose Tang, to talk about her perspectives on Tibetan movement. She's a journalist, previously worked for international news organizations such as CNN in China, Hong Kong, and Australia. Today, she's a New York-based writer and has shown great interest and very engaged in Tibetan movement. Welcome to our show, Rose Tang.
Thank you, Jashtele.
I'm interested to know, as a Chinese democracy activist, how you become interested in Tibetan issues.
My love and relationship with Tibet goes a long way. Back in 1985, I visited Amdo, Ngaba, with my artist mother to paint Tibet. I was an art student, and the following year I visited again to paint. And in the next 20 years, I visited Tibet, mainly Kham and Amdo, as a reporter. I interview Tibetan people there. I am fascinated by Tibetan Buddhism and the history and art, everything, and most of all, the Tibetan people.
Okay.
I think the Tibetan people are the most beautiful people in the world.
Okay. So you have witnessed the Tiananmen Massacre, engaged and also participated. Were there any Tibetan university students at that time?
No, but I saw Tibetan lamas in the square, and I was very fascinated. Mind you, back then, for almost 2 months, lots of people showed up in Beijing, especially in the square. Sometime, one day, we would have 1 million people in the square. So people from all walks of life and all age groups showed up. It was fascinating.
So far, according to Chinese government, there is no official count of how many deaths. Is that right?
I'm sure, very sure. Many students were killed.
Yeah.
For the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Yes, they deliberately they keep it a secret. They want to whitewash the massacre. They don't want people to know that people got killed there. And then, of course, before that, we got to know people were killed and injured in Lhasa a few months ago.
So I want to focus on Tibetan issue now. No, we can see in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, something is happening there, independence movements, and then the emergence of a new president, Tsai Ing-wen, from a progressive Democratic Party. And so do you think this will prove more headache for Chinese government in the years to come, and what this says about Tibetan issues?
Hong Kong and Taiwan have been headaches for China for a long time, for decades actually. Right now, let's start with Taiwan. The election of Tsai Ing-wen, and of course they don't like it. And of course it really signals the emergence of the independence movement. And in a lot of other activists, Hong Kong activists and Chinese activists, during the election, they flew over, they traveled especially to Taiwan to observe the elections, to learn. And in Hong Kong, speaking of Hong Kong, in December 2014, towards the end of the Umbrella Revolution, I flew over from New York to Hong Kong and camped with the students in a tent for a week. And your staff interviewed me when I was in the square after they saw on my Facebook, I unfurled a Tibetan national flag. I took His Holiness, the Dalai Lama's book, one of his books there, Freedom in Exile, because I liked looking at his picture. And I had that book, the cover, I had the photos taken there in the Umbrella Square. The reason why I'm bringing out my personal story, this is very exciting. That's how I felt Hong Kong and Tibet are together. So when I unfurled the flag, I was prepared to be arrested, to be beaten up by the police. And when I unfurled it, I couldn't believe it. Instead of the cops nabbing me, it's the Hong Kong people and the mainland people. They all came. They stood next to me. Then they said, that's a Tibetan flag. We don't want Hong Kong to be another Tibet. And they said, I'm from Hong Kong, and there's a worker from Beijing. And he said, because I was wearing a T-shirt with Tank Man. And he said, I was in Tiananmen Square, and let's hold the flag higher.
Okay.
So this way, the Hong Kong people are even more eager to work with the Tibetan activists because Hong Kong is becoming another Tibet. And so Hong Kong and Taiwan are providing a huge opportunity for all of us.
So opportunity, not an obstacle for Tibetan issues to solve.
Obstacle for the Chinese Communist Party.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Is it possible for you to gauge the view of Chinese people in general and particularly the activists in Hong Kong about Tibetan struggles?
So continuing with that story, I met the Hong Kong students. I told them about Tibet, and they were familiar, but they're not that familiar. And even the older generation were talking about people in their 70s. And guess what happened? A few days ago, some of them unfurled Tibetan national flag, including this veteran activist. His nickname is Uncle Wang. He and his wife, they've been camping there and supporting the students during the Umbrella Revolution. He's famous. He and his wife unfurled a Tibetan national flag. And I shared his photo on my Facebook. And I shared it in a lot of Tibetan groups on Facebook, and I put it on Twitter. I wrote it in English and Chinese.
Okay.
And I said, I thank you for bringing the Tibetan flag. And he said, don't thank me. We're in this together. We're working on the same cause.
Okay. So the Central Tibetan Administration in exile, Tibetan government in exile, invest great deals in building a bridge with the Chinese people, especially intellectual democracy activists. And so do you think there's a hope that we gain more support from the Chinese people in general?
CTA officials and the Chinese liaison officers, I know them. I have been in regular contact with them, and they've been working really hard with the pro-democracy activists and the dissidents in America. I would like more efforts to be made to approach younger people and to use more social media and also to get the objectives clear. The objective is that we're all in this together. The Tibetan cause, Chinese cause, Hong Kong cause, it's the same cause because we're standing up against the same enemies, the Chinese Communist Party. I hope they have a clearer direction because we're not here when we're working on the Tibetan cause, it's not about just the middle way approach, promoting the CTA policy. It's promoting Tibet. It's for the Tibetan freedom and independence.
Okay.
I was following the election for a while, and I was very confused. I know some of the candidates, and I was particularly confused by the preliminary election. I missed it because otherwise I would have engaged more of my friends, engaged with more Tibetan friends or engaged more Chinese friends to know more about it. I'm not talking about supporting certain candidates. I'm talking about using this because I traveled to Dharamsala several times. I wanted to learn the whole model. I thought it's a role model for us, right? It's the government in exile. But I was very confused by the election. So I hope CTA would set a clearer direction on its policies about China and Tibet and Hong Kong, and engaging especially Hong Kong more. So
you mentioned about the independence. So in exile for Tibetan movement. So what's your take on the parallel struggles of Central Tibetan Administration's middle way policy and that of Tibetan Youth Congress independence goal?
Before I got involved in the Tibetan cause, I had thought by theory, this is brilliant. It's very tactful. It's like good cop, bad cop thing. But as I got deeper into the movement and I started to learn more stories, And I thought, I still think, unfortunately, it's confusing a lot of people, including me, and especially a lot of young Tibetans who are frustrated on like which. Because whenever I give lectures, talks, speeches to Tibetan people, they ask me, do you support middle way or Rangzhen? I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you want your country back? They all put up their hands.
For all the atrocities the Chinese government has committed.
So why you think the dialogue is not resumed and it's not moving forward? Why the Chinese is worried about Tibet?
They don't like it. They don't like anybody saying no to them. They don't like the truth of Tibet to come out. They don't want the Chinese to know the atrocities happened in Tibet. 1 million Tibetans got killed. They don't want, they're really greedy people. They don't want any parts of so-called China breaking away from China.
Okay.
That's natural for them.
Yeah, so given the situations that Tibetans are going to face in the years to come, do you think Tibetan movement is sustainable?
Definitely. It's because of the people I meet. I'm so inspired by people, especially the young people. A lot of women, and very strong-minded and very incredibly smart and well-organized people. I learn a lot from them.
Okay, so final words. As you know, like China is an emerging superpower, and not many Western countries dare to ruffle her. And however, we have been under occupation for these years, and the Tiananmen was many years ago. So do you see there's a light at the end of the tunnel for people yearning for democracy and freedoms in Hong Kong and Tibet?
Yes, I see it from the people. I get approached by young Chinese, young Tibetans, young Hong Kongers. They come to my Facebook and Twitter all the time asking, the Chinese students will be asking the truth of Tiananmen and Tibet. And I got Chinese writing on my Facebook openly in English because they want people to see, they want the world, especially the Tibetan people to see. We support Tibetan independence. We're all in this together. And they are the hopes. And Hong Kong, look at the Joshua Wong. He's only 19 years old. He started the movement when he was 14. And I got approached by a 13-year-old high school student in Beijing on Twitter, wanting to know about June 4th, the Tiananmen massacre. So these younger people, they're definitely carrying on the freedom struggle. And they're more efficient as well.
Are the Chinese youngest people not more influenced by the Chinese narrative on Tibet, or do they have independent views of what Tibet issue?
A part of my job is to de-brainwash, I call it anti-wash them, anti-brainwash them. I brainwash people with the truth of Tiananmen, the truth of Tibet, the truth of Hong Kong. It's a battle of truth.
Okay, thank you very much, Rose Tang, for coming to our show. Thank you very much.
To Chinan.